YouTube, I'm here to bring you more Overwatch news, and there's a big article that came out talking about what's happening for the mid-season Season 10 patch for Overwatch 2, so in about 12 days. So let's see what Aaron Keller, the director of the game, has to say. He calls this article, Empowering Tanks in the Mid-Season. Hey everyone, glad to see you all of you digging into Season 10. We've loved seeing you welcome our newest hero venture and enjoy the Mirror Watch event, playable now in arcade. Also, pause. Did you guys love the April Fool's patch? Because you can still play it in custom games. Anyways, however, this week I want to look ahead to our mid-season update and discuss some changes we have on the way for the tank role. In Overwatch 2, tanks are the imposing heroes who take the brunt of the fight while enabling their teammates to secure eliminations. While tanks are a big target for opponents to focus on, many team comps aim to burn down a tank's HP quickly, or they get moved around a lot from displacement abilities. We've received feedback that tanks can either feel like they get taken down too quickly in a fight, or that they're impossible to take down. Okay, the impossible part is mostly reserved for maybe Orisa pre-nerf, and maybe Roadhog if he's just sitting there vaping. Probably in the metal ranks, he just becomes very unkillable. In the high ranks, they get blown up, so it's kind of a hit or miss, two extremes. So what are they going to do? This is where we get into it. So our first mid-season update is going to help balance how many hits tanks can take to stay in the fight better. First, we're specifically buffing the tank passive to have a 25% damage reduction from headshots, which should help cut down on being burst down in a fight. Tank passive now has 25% damage reduction to all headshots. All these breakpoints are going to be very interesting here. Wow. We're also increasing the knockback resistance for tanks from 30% to 50%, which should allow them to hold the front line a lot more and not feel as subjected to displacement abilities. God, we should cut that clip of Emong getting booped off the map as Junker Queen ult in our OWCS match. That was insane how far he got booped before. Sometimes it does feel like tanks get booped way too much. It does look kind of wild at 50%, but they're a tank, so it's fine. We're also making some global gameplay changes that impact tanks. One is that we're reverting the armor damage reduction back to reducing 5 damage per projectile with up to 50% maximum. This means heroes like Reaper or Tracer will have more work to do to take down heroes like Reinhardt. Heroes with high burst damage per projectile will still be effective, but these kinds of tanks have better means to counterplay that type of damage. I made so many videos on HP shields and armors, and now we have to change it yet again, and that's okay. We made a light change to our overall HP recovery passive, so the global healing passive, that will enable mobile tanks to get back to the front lines faster. The health regeneration passive for all heroes will no longer recover 20 HP per second out of combat, but instead recover 10 health plus 5% of their max health per second. So supports are kind of nerfed here in that way, right? Wait, what's a 250 HP hero? What's 250 HP? What's 5% of 250 on average? I can't do math. 10% is 25 health, 12.5. Oh, never mind. So this is just a little bit stronger than previously for most heroes in the game. The only heroes that heal less out of combat are going to be like Tracer, Baby Diva, Widowmaker. Is that it? Everybody else technically heals more per second, with tanks getting much, much more. 5% of, let's say, a Roadhog at 700 HP, which normally is 17.5, is that correct? So they will heal 27.5 per second, right? Ryan recovers 45 HPS. Am I doing the math wrong? Oh wait, I am doing the math wrong. Oh, 700 HP Roadhog, 10% is 70, 5% is 35. Sorry, I cut that in half again. So that would be 45 HP per second on Roadhog. Any 700 HP gets 45 HP per second. So it says it right here. That means a hero like Reinhardt will recover their health at 45 health per second in a roll queue match. Okay, that is quite a bit. I'll be honest, the global healing passive usually didn't really kick in until like very extreme moments, like maybe like 2 moments in an entire game you'll actually find yourself waiting for it passively. So this will be good for some heroes like Wrecking Ball, who literally roll out of the fight. Heroes like Orisa literally have to stand there and take damage. Anybody with the shield might benefit from this, like Reinhardt. They mentioned Ryan can heal 45, but the fact that he can hold a shield in a corner and actually not take any chip damage to stop that passive from kicking in can help Ryan recover out of the fight. It can help Ball, Ramatra, maybe Sigma, but Ramatra's shield only lasts 4 seconds. You really have to hide. If you take a lick of damage, you resets the 5-second timer, right? So Sigma, Ryan, Ball. Anybody else? I don't know. That's just my first thoughts. In any case, I can probably think more of it later. In some more individual changes, Junker Queen is getting a buffed commanding shout in the mid-season, wow, which will be activated even if you are channeling abilities like Carnage or Rampage, and its cooldown is getting reduced to 12 seconds. Oh, wow. This change should allow her to be more engaged in intense fights where you need to charge in more quickly. Because if you're mid-animation, you can't press shout, so now it's a quality of life change plus cooldown getting reduced. What's the current cooldown? 15 seconds, maybe? I like Junker Queen. I think Junker Queen's a lot of fun. I'm happy with Junker Queen buffs. This is good for us. If Ryan becomes meta and OWCS, Emong's like, yeah, my Face of Clown's not going to work if Ryan becomes meta. But if Queen becomes meta, we're in. With Wrecking Ball, we're seeing some creative play with the changes to his grappling claw. However, his ability to contribute to the fight is getting a small buff. The impact damage from a full charged swing using grappling claw is getting increased from 50 to 60. So fireball damage is now buffed by 20%. That's pretty good. Pile Driver is increasing the enemy movement lockout from 0.5 to 0.75. Okay, this is big. If you get pile drived and like slammed into the ground and you get knocked into the air, you can't move anything for 0.75 seconds. That is stronger than you think, by the way. Lucio's lockout duration got buffed from 0.3 to 0.4 when you got booped, where you can't do any movement and you're locked out. It was actually a big buff for Lucio. So the fact that you're actually slamming down and forcing people to stay holding in the air, I can't air strafe in the air. If I get slammed up, I'm in a predictable arc for 0.75 seconds. I'm gonna get sniped. That is actually a very big buff, especially on paper. We'll see it in practice, but I've seen how this works out on paper for other heroes. This looks pretty big. And finally, Minefield will be a little bit more threatening, with explosion damage increased from 130 to 165, and knockback being increased from 5 to 10 meters. What do you mean a small buff? 10-meter knockback on the mines? Wait, what? Mines boop you back like crazy now. If you get hit by one, you're gonna get for sure blood. Sometimes if you walk into one mine by accident, you hit one, you're like, oh shit. But the fact that if you walk into a mine and it boops you back and you bump into another mine, you're pretty much cooked. And remember, Doomfist Seismic Slam doesn't clear Ball's mines. There's a certain interaction with Ball versus Doomfist matchups where if a Wrecking Ball puts mines down, a Doomfist can just Seismic Slam and clear them all. That doesn't work anymore. Mines also last 20 seconds. That's right. Does a lot more damage. You're locked out of your motion. So if you mine and slam somebody, they're pretty much dead. You do have to Suzu earlier now. These are some big ball buffs. Additionally, changes coming to the mid-season include some light buffs for Junkrat, Echo, and Hanzo. Okay, Junkrat and Hanzo I can understand. Mercy, I think Mercy needs a little help. I think Hanzo needed help. Junkrat needed help. I'm not sure why they're buffing Echo. I think Echo performs just fine at high ranks. In fact, she's very meta. This is the part where if they're looking at win rates in low ranks and they're like, we'll just buff Echo because she doesn't perform well in low ranks, I don't think that's a good call. I think Echo is great right now. Remember, there are always going to be heroes that don't perform as well in the lower ranks simply because of the high skill ceiling. Heroes like Tracer, Sojourn, Winston have terrible win rates in the low ranks because these are high skill ceiling heroes. Yes, I said Winston. People are going to be like, why? Winston has no aim. No, there's a lot of finesse and very high skill ceiling on Winston, believe it or not, especially Primal Rage. It's a very hard ultimate to use effectively, and decision making on Winston actually genuinely is very, not the highest skill ceiling, but definitely one of the ones that requires a lot more game knowledge than you think. Interesting that they're buffing Echo. Hanzo, Junkrat I'm okay with, and again, I'm surprised they're not buffing Mercy, just slightly, nothing too crazy, because I don't think Mercy is very good. This is the part where when they're looking at low ranks, they're like, Echo buff, but Mercy's performing just fine in low ranks. We don't need to do anything to her. But Mercy is straight up like in the lowest tier in high ranks, in my opinion, along with Lifeweaver. We'll reveal those when you jump in and take these changes for a test drive when the mid-season patch arrives on May 14th. That is all for this week, everyone. Thanks for reading, and let's make a great game. Now that I'm done the article chat, I have 4 resources we're going to take a look at. You guys see all these videos? I've made 3 videos in Overwatch about the difference between HP, shield, and armor. This one was made in 2016, outdated. I explained it's going back to Overwatch 1 from 7 years ago. I made one 5 years ago in 2019, and I made one 2 years ago when Overwatch 2 came out with the concept of what armor does. But if you guys read the article, armor works like this now. So if they're reverting it, this is basically what it goes. Let's see if this still makes sense.
Which is displayed with yellow bars for both teams. Armor can be healed by healing abilities only if the character innately has it as part of their kit. This means that armor given from Torbjorn will not be granted back through healing once depleted. Now the most important part of armor is that it has a unique property in which any instance of damage is reduced by a flat amount of 5 damage.
This is now true again in 2 weeks.
So for example, a direct rocket from Farah is an instance of damage of 120. So that means a target with armor would take 5 damage less, making her
120 to 115. Still accurate.
rocket deal 115 to them instead. Simple, right? Well, armor goes a little deeper than that. What if a hero's instance of damage is not in the 100s like Farah, but actually in the single digits? Well, in cases like these, a 5 damage reduction would be significantly stronger, so there's a rule put in place that reduces any instance of damage under 10 by 50%. I'm gonna call this the rule of 10. So take Tracer for example. Each instance of damage from her is actually 1 bullet, and each bullet only does 6 damage for a body shot. Therefore, a fully unloaded magazine would do 240 damage normally to any other target. However, on an armored target, this would be reduced by 50% because of the rule of 10. So
I sound so different. I didn't have YouTube voice yet, you know? I wasn't sure how to read scripts yet. So if you reread this, reverting the damage reduction to 5 damage per projectile with a 50% maximum, as long as it doesn't exceed this. Heroes like Reaper and Tracer have more work to do. So again, I was 22 years old. I'm turning 31. That's right. No, that was 2016. I was 23 at that time when I made that video. So 5 damage per projectile. So 120 becomes 115. So big burst is okay. But small bullets and peppers get reduced by 50% if it's exceeding more than double of 5. So anything that does like 12 damage will get reduced by 5 up to 7 damage per, bullet. But once it goes to 10 damage, it will just cap out at 50%. 6 damage per bullet, it'll do 3. 8 damage per bullet, it'll do 4, etc., etc. The calculation with this is interesting because of the tank headshots, the headshot damage, because headshot damage is going to be 25% less, and then you get to see if it calculates that before accounting for the armor rule. So Cactus Puppy made a couple of graphs. First of all, let's talk about the armor. Pre-patch, post-patch, post-patch with tank headshot passive, and then this is the raw damage. So if you're a Tracer and you do about 6 damage per bullet right here, pre-patch against an armored target, it would do, it would do this. Sorry, this is the raw damage bullet of 6. Pre-patch would be a 30% reduction, flat no matter what. So it was a linear graph to simplify it. It's this blue graph. But in the new patch, you do less damage. You'll be doing it somewhere here, and if it's with a headshot, it'll do here. So the breakpoint seems to be about 10 damage per bullet, if I'm reading this graph correctly, for the post-patch and the pre-patch, without accounting for the headshot. There's a weird break here. So right here at about, 17 damage, it'll be about the same because of a 30% reduction. Your raw damage of about 15 per bullet gets cut down to about 30% less. So that's 11 on the pre-patch, and then post-patch, it'll be about the same when accounting for it. And then when you add the headshot with 25% less, it's calculated all for it. The TLDR, 11 damage per bullet is the breakpoint in which any hero that does more damage than 11 per bullet will be fine. So I'm thinking Soldier 76 does like 20, so post-patch, he'll be fine. He's actually doing more damage here, but if he's headshotting them, it'd be doing less. Sojourn's damage is actually interesting. It's right around that sweet spot of around 11 or 12, right? Orisa does 11 or 12 damage per shot too, right? Something around the breakpoint-ish area. So basically, as a Sojourn, you want to use more railgun shots on tank instead of spamming to hold pellets to hold the charge. Yeah, well, to refresh it. Basically, most heroes are being buffed except for Mei, Tracer, Sombra. Heroes that do less than 10 are being nerfed. So Reaper, Tracer, Sombra's somewhere down here as well. Sojourn's pellets at 9 apparently, so that's Sojourn's gonna be worse on this new patch. Widow SMG, sure. Maybe Lifeweaver single pellets. Any shotgun-based heroes, so maybe like Diva as well, technically. Roadhog shotgun, yeah, Roadhog shotgun into an armored target specifically. Okay, now let's look at the other graph. Change in damage reduction against armor pre and post midseason patch. Okay, so raw damage. This one looks a little bit easier to read. Our damage reduction of 0, right around here. What is this? Armored only, armor plus tank headshot. Anyways, we'll put it on the screen for the people on YouTube. Somebody smarter than me comment on the heroes that this affects. Thank you very much. We have a full chart here. Thank you, smart math people. Cactus Puppy. Tracer pistols, raw damage of 6 per bullet. If you headshot them, So changing armor back to his OG is a buff for the heavy hitters like Junker or Ryan who clear, and have big burst damage is always better. So like Junkrat, Pharah, Ryan swings, anything with big chunky bursts will be fine because it's reduced by less. Because previously armor is a 30% reduction across the board, but now it means bigger burst doesn't get reduced as much, but lower pellets and bullets do less. Yeah, that's the TLDR. Headshot. Ooh, this is good. Headshot relative change is a beam, not a beam. Is it a dot? No. Damage with old armor. Yep, 30% reduction would be 4.2. New damage without a headshot is 3 because it's cut in half. That makes sense. If you decide to headshot people with Tracer, it does 2.25 per bullet. So headshotting is technically like a lot more. It's not double the. It's actually pretty much more effective in a way to kind of mitigate it because you bring your instance of damage to a higher flat amount by headshotting, which means it can bypass that rule of the 50% reduction in some cases. Malga bullet only does 4 normally. Force crit headshot. So force crit is apparently a different calculator than an actual headshot. Interesting. Pharah direct rocket. Yeah, previously be 84 against armor because it was a big 30% reduction. Now it's only -5. So yeah, Pharah's buffed. Widow body shot's buffed. Sojourn's rail body shot is actually pretty good now. The headshot is barely different. In the old 30% reduction, it meant more to go for a headshot. Now the body shot and the headshot are like the rate of change is not that big of a difference. So like if you can't finesse a headshot on a tank, just go for a guaranteed body shot. Should be pretty good now. Okay. Junker Queen's axe, knife, bleed, Bastion's damage, normally 17.5, 20, 33.5, assault. Antibiotic rifle. Ooh, okay. Old, 49. New, against armor, 70. What? Because there's no headshot. You don't have to headshot anyways. Wait, what? So if I'm understanding this correctly, damage over time ignores it now. If this is accurate, is this true? I understand this. I'm doing 70 right now on the current patch is a 30% reduction with armor. On the new patch, it seems like if you check off the dot box, damage over time, then damage over time is not affected by it, or like barely. So that means it would just be 75 of the total -5. Not each tick of the dot getting reduced by 5. Not each is not -5. It's just the total calculated end. So yeah, so 75 base minus just 5. Interesting. That's good for Ana against armor. So technically all the dot abilities are buffed in a way, right? Like crazy, because it just takes the total amount at the end instead of each tick. Junkrat technically getting an indirect buff against tanks. Wrecking Ball, Vay's Endothermic Blaster. Here's Cassidy's headshots. KarQ Kunai. Ooh, headshot on the old patch. The headshot is pretty much the same, but body shotting will feel good. Overwatch 1 armor is applied no damage reduction to dots. The spreadsheet makers in the chat, Cactus Puppy. Okay, so the TLDR again will also be that mid-range fights, this is kind of a nerf to tanks against some matchups up close, but better against others. So the armor changes, yeah, good in some, bad in some others. So now it's a case-by-case matchup. There's a lot more to calculate when going into nitty-gritty Overwatch. I actually think this is okay. It makes it feel like you have to like choose your picks wisely instead of Tracer being a one-size-fits-all. It's like, oh my god, they're playing an armored tank. If they're playing a Roadhog, obviously it doesn't matter because Roadhog has no armor. But if they're playing any sort of armored tank, which is quite a lot of heroes, and heroes like Brig have armor, Torbjorn has armor, and stuff like that, you have to change your picks accordingly. I know in Overwatch 2 they made it 30% reduction across the board to simplify things at first, but now it's been a year and a half, the game's evolved, there are issues they need to solve, so now we go back and we're sort of advancing the strategy that used to exist in some capacity. That is the graph. What will be the damage meta? Hard to predict right now, but that is a very, very interesting change. That'll be all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Bye-bye.